Born to a 16-year-old and an absent father, Charles Manson's turbulent upbringing led to a life of crime. Raised by relatives in West Virginia, after his mother's imprisonment, he spiraled into delinquency. From the age of 9, he cycled through juvenile reformatories and prisons, accumulating charges ranging from petty theft to armed robbery. So, what did Charles Manson turn out to be? Let's find out. Charles Manson was born on November 12, 1934, in Cincinnati, Ohio. He had a troubled childhood. His mother, Kathleen Maddox, was young and often left him with relatives. Manson never knew his father. He bounced around different homes and schools, which made him feel neglected and angry. As a teenager, Manson started getting into trouble with the law. He committed various crimes, including theft and armed robbery. He spent much of his youth in juvenile detention centers and later in prison. Prison life exposed him to other criminals and helped shape his views on society. In the 1960s, Manson was released from prison and moved to California. He began gathering a group of followers, mostly young women, who were drawn to his charismatic personality and his ideas about an impending race war. He called his group the Manson Family. The Manson family was formed in the late 1960s in California. Its leader, Charles Manson, was a charismatic but deeply disturbed man who believed in a bizarre ideology that combined elements of hippie culture, the occult, and his delusions of grandeur. Manson attracted a diverse group of followers, mostly young women, who were looking for a sense of belonging and purpose. He preyed on their vulnerabilities, offering them a sense of family and community in exchange for their absolute loyalty and obedience. Manson used a combination of manipulation, coercion, and mind control techniques to maintain control over his followers. He isolated them from their families and the outside world, creating a cult-like atmosphere where he was worshipped as a messianic figure with supernatural powers. One of Manson's central beliefs was the idea of helter-skelter, a race war that he believed was imminent. He preached that this war would be triggered by a series of violent acts, which he and his followers would carry out. Manson hoped to incite chaos and bring about the downfall of society, which he believed would pave the way for him to emerge as a leader of a new world order. The Manson family lived a nomadic lifestyle, moving from place to place in search of new recruits and opportunities to spread their message of chaos and destruction. They often lived in squalid conditions, surviving through petty theft and scams. Manson preached a bizarre ideology that combined elements of hippie culture, the occult, and his own twisted beliefs. He claimed to be a prophet and convinced his followers that he was a messianic figure with supernatural powers. Charles Manson's murders are a grim chapter in American history, marked by brutality and senseless violence. So, where did Manson get the idea of helter-skelter? Before Charles Manson's infamous involvement with the Tate LaBianca murders, he lived a life marked by a troubled past and failed attempts at success in the music industry. Having spent a significant portion of his life in correctional institutions, Manson emerged with a desire for fame and influence. He found himself on the fringes of the Los Angeles music scene, where a chance encounter with Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys led to an introduction to record producer Terry Melcher. In 1968, the Beach Boys recorded one of Manson's songs, Cease to Exist, which was later released as Never Learn Not to Love on a singles B-side, though Manson received no credit. Despite this initial connection, Manson's attempts to secure a record contract through Melcher were unsuccessful. Manson's fascination with the Beatles, particularly their 1968 album commonly known as the White Album, became a central theme in his twisted ideology. He interpreted the album's lyrics and imagery as messages supporting his apocalyptic vision, which he called helter-skelter. This obsession with the Beatles and their perceived influence on society played a significant role in Manson's manipulation of his followers and the horrific crimes they ultimately committed. So, what crimes did Manson commit? The most infamous murder happened on the night of August 8-9, 1969, at the home of actress Sharon Tate and her husband, director Roman Polanski. Tate was 8 months pregnant at the time. Manson instructed 4 of his followers, Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian, to go to the house and totally destroy everyone in it, as gruesome as you can. The Manson family members brutally murdered Sharon Tate and 4 others who were present at the house that night: Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, Wojciech Frykowski, and Stephen Parent. The victims were stabbed multiple times, and their bodies were left mutilated. The word pig was scrawled in blood on the front door, supposedly as a reference to Manson's belief that the murders would be blamed on African Americans, inciting the race war he predicted. The following night, Manson himself accompanied a group of his followers to the home of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca. Once again, Manson directed his followers to kill everyone in the house. Leno LaBianca was stabbed multiple times, and his wife Rosemary was also murdered. The words "Death to Pigs" and "Rise" were written in blood on the walls of the house. The murders shocked the nation and left the city of Los Angeles in fear. The brutality of the crimes and the seemingly random choice of victims added to the terror. The police launched a massive investigation, which eventually led them to Manson and his followers. During the trial, Manson and his followers showed no remorse for their actions. They behaved disruptively in the courtroom, carved X's into their foreheads, and declared themselves to be the true victims. Despite their attempts to manipulate the proceedings, Manson and several of his followers were convicted of murder and sentenced to death. However, their sentences were later commuted to life in prison when California abolished the death penalty in 1972. Manson spent the rest of his life behind bars, becoming a symbol of evil and depravity. He continued to attract followers and attention from the media, even from prison. The Manson murders had a profound impact on American society. They shattered the illusion of peace and love that had characterized the hippie movement of the 1960s. They also raised questions about the nature of evil and the influence of charismatic leaders on vulnerable individuals. Today, the Manson murders are remembered as one of the darkest chapters in American criminal history. The senseless brutality of the crimes and the twisted ideology behind them continue to fascinate and horrify people around the world, serving as a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked fanaticism and the capacity for evil that exists within us all. Although Manson did not personally commit the murders, he was found guilty of orchestrating them and sentenced to life in prison. Even behind bars, Manson continued to attract attention and influence people. He became a notorious figure in popular culture, with books, movies, and documentaries being made about him. Manson died in prison on November 19, 2017, at the age of 83. Despite his death, his legacy continues to fascinate and horrify people around the world. He remains one of the most infamous criminals in American history, a symbol of the dark side of human nature and the dangers of charismatic leadership. So do you think his cult could exist even without him? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.